back.
Yo, what's
Welcome
up?
back to our latest webisode.
Yeah, man. Um, it's just a lot going on, and we're got to talk. You know,
Yep,
or like,
we got a lot of catching up to do, a bunch of headlines, especially after yesterday. Let's see, I guess a good place to start was one of the major headlines. Wasn't really all that political, I'd say, but it involved a notable figure passing away, Chadwick Boseman. We had a whole episode titled "Killmonger Was Right."
yeah, we should have talked about Killmonger more on that episode.
Yeah, I think so. I
I
mean,
feel like Aaron has good. He's got good Black Panther takes that we didn't get
yeah,
out of.
I mean, but the way it kind of that it
Yeah,
that
it was too fresh that night, right?
um, well, I mean, the
I
way I
mean,
kind of
last time
looked
we
at it
recorded.
though was, it's just one of those things. It was just like one of those cultural things that kind of permeated into all kinds of different avenues, I guess. So, when with Chadwick, he had been dealing with colon cancer for the last 4 years, as I understand it,
Yeah.
and that covers a lot of his recent work that people have known him for.
hmm
And from the stories that I read, he was still confident that he was going to be able to go ahead and beat this thing. So he was preparing to go ahead and start filming Black Panther 2 in the upcoming year.
Damn.
You know, and
It's got to be so painful. Like,
yeah,
just like it always like shocks me when like a rich person dies of cancer like that, because you think of cancer as one of those diseases where if you're rich enough you can beat it, you know.
that's exactly kind of what I went through with in my mind.
Like
But
look at Rush Limbaugh, you know, like
yeah, but apparently Chadwick got diagnosed
too
when he was
late.
already stage 3.
Oh, okay.
He was already stage 3, and he had to have been what 30. And he was in his 30s getting diagnosed, so he's been fighting this thing for a while before it finally got him.
Damn, but shit, it was so painful.
Um,
Um, I
yeah,
mean, like before we started recording, we were discussing whether or not he was bullied. Like, I don't know if we should rehash all that, but
I
like,
mean, I just I think we came to a conclusion about don't be engaging in dickish behavior over somebody's appearance because you really don't know what they're
yeah,
dealing with.
I don't like to rag on people's appearances anyway. Like,
Yeah,
I think that's lazy. Like, I think if you can't make a good insult that's not based on your appearance, then just don't say anything. You know, like with, like the whole thing reminded me of like the Markey Bros, the JK3 thing,
hmm
and like there's so much to rag on that guy for without going to his looks, but yet
yeah.
so many people like kept talking about his drool. Like, I don't even know that story. Like, what? Why does he have wet lips? Why is that a thing?
I have no idea. I didn't even really pay attention to any of that crap. All I knew was it was a neoliberal that we had to keep out of the whole,
The
keep
nuclear
out of the
weapons
Senate.
thing, that's the dumbest thing ever, where he was like, yeah, I accidentally voted the wrong way. I meant to vote against that. So like either he's telling the truth and he's a massive moron, or he's lying and he's just, a cynical hack.
Yeah,
Like,
but well, since we're gonna go back into the world of politics, there was a little bit of a significant event that went on that got a lot of attention, which was the People's Convention.
yeah.
You get to catch any of that?
I didn't catch too much of it. I caught like maybe, an hour or two. Um,
Yeah, I mean they did have some pretty notable people going over and speaking at that thing. I mean, you had Nina Turner, we had Cornel West.
yeah, I need to watch Dr. West's segment because I watched Nina Turner's, Cornel West, and I didn't watch Jimmy Dore either, but I
Yeah,
watched most of the other
yeah,
ones.
people were going crazy over Jimmy Dore too, and Tim Black got a lot of attention for his part
But
that
Tim
he
Black
did.
was on?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I kept seeing people were going crazy over when Tim Black started
Yeah.
speaking.
Hey, first of all, my name is Tim Black of the Tim Black Show, and I'd like to first thank you for allowing me to participate in this fantastic event with great people. Some people I know, most people I know, all people who are speaking truth to power right now. So that's amazing. Got something I wanted. I wrote down a couple of things. I was driving back from North Carolina, as I told Nick. Got here just in time to do this. Fuck Donald Trump. Yeah, so I want to start off with that. No, one more second. Memory's getting bad. I'm getting old, man. Fuck Joe Biden. That's about right. All right, so Curl, big time supporter of Nick Brana. I think she's like the VP of all things good in the People's Movement for People's Party. She sent me an email. She said, hey, we'd love for you to join us, Tim, if you'd like to talk about some things about, why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck, Johnson. Yeah, both parties suck. Both Republican Party and Democratic Party have failed black people since there's been black people. In fact, we weren't even black people until we were brought to America. So the existence of black people, the entire existence of black people, both parties have failed us tremendously. So that'd be one good reason to start a new party.
I guess he doesn't have as big of an audience as some other people. How many subscribers does he have?
Not sure. I know he's not like, probably around the size of a Human Report, if I had to say, just from what I remember.
Who's the most? Is like an
It's
independent?
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man, he's almost to 1 million.
Yeah, Pac-Man.
Majority Report.
Majority Report and Kyle.
And Kyle's kind of what? He's like high eight.
Yeah,
something.
he's high. He's about to get to 900.
That fucking algorithm, though, man. Like that's
that
really
screwed,
lame.
that screwed all of them over this time
That's
around.
so
It really
fucking
did.
lame. It's
And like I don't know what Pac-Man's doing to be able to go, because he was trailing Kyle, and Kyle was the leader for a while, and then Majority Report and Pac-Man just went and shot up past him.
he's a fucking rad lib. He's not even a rad lib. He's just a lib.
But the one dude that got a lot of attention too was I hadn't heard of him before actually. Was Chris Hedges. You
I
see
love Chris Hedges.
Yes, he was. He went in on a lot of different areas, but he got a lot of attention for calling Bernie a sheepdog.
Yeah, well, that's the Jimmy Dore line too, right? Like that crowd. That's sort of like, I don't know how you would frame it as like further left or not, but like that's the crowd that has zero good faith left in them for any mainstream politician.
Yeah, that dude was just completely black pill.
Like, yeah, they hate AOC, and it's like even during like the Heroes Act or the CARES Act, right? Like AOC was objectively stronger voice than just about anybody, and even that was like not strong enough for that crowd. Like they are super black pilled, man. They're like magenta pilled or something. Like fucking
Yeah, I mean, if the goal with the convention is to go and start a viable third party, I guess is that the intent, right?
yeah. And I don't know how much optimism I have, but like we do need to get we need to have a national organizing structure of some sort. Like it's really hard to get enough people from enough different factions, like a Bernie type figure. Like Bernie would have to do it, or somebody like that. Maybe Nina Turner.
The only way I see something like that being able to be viable is you have to start at the ground level with a national structure and get smaller seats and then work your way up.
But like we need sort of like a union, like a labor union kind of. Like we need to sort of have that sort of, like DSA needs to be like I keep saying, like, DSA needs to be like 20 times bigger, but if not DSA, then something else, like just as a way to like collate opinions and voices. And I think the problem is you get wreckers. People wreck shit when it gets big enough, right? Like they all try to bring in their personal thing that they organize around, be it like indigenous rights or prison abolition or Medicare for all or whatever it is. Everybody tries to prioritize their thing above everybody else's thing. But like that's why you need something that's sort of looser, right? Where it's just sort of like a collection of like an artist collective where your opinion doesn't matter. There's not like a single unifying platform as so much as it is the anti-capitalist,
I mean, at least you could kind of find some kind of unity in that sense. There's a lot of differences when it comes to when you say leftist. That can mean a lot of different things.
Well, anti-capitalist, I guess, is a better way to say it.
But yeah, it's but really, the issue here is that we're so far in the opposite direction that those differences aren't really practical to go and harp on at this point.
No, they're not. But people do that though. You know,
Yeah.
like people will say shit like, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. Like I'm gonna take my
Right.
faction and leave unless you know, have better representation or you have more direct action or whatever it is.
One of the weaknesses of the left is there's just not that kind of cohesion that you see from the right. But
Yeah, think about the
and,
fucking
and
scale of
well,
the grifters in the Democratic Party.
well,
You
speaking
know,
of cohesion, one of the right wing issues that people, well, their people have been showing a lot of unity on, is coming to Kyle Rittenhouse's defense. We saw that immediately right after with the whole self-defense line.
yeah, he's a fucking psycho chud, man. He's a fucking psycho Blue Lives Matter dipshit who went there trying to boss people around and threaten them
And
with his
act like
fucking
a,
big dick gun.
it seems like he was going in there to try to do prep work for when you would eventually become a cop.
Yeah, he wanted to be a cop. This was him doing his fucking cop LARPing shit, and because the cops show that you can murder protesters with no accountability, they, you know, he went and repeated it. Like, I feel bad for him, you know, like 17-year-old kid, he's fucking stupid, you know, like he has those crazy parents, right? That fucking
Yeah,
Sarah
those
Connor
pictures
ass
came out
mom.
too. I mean,
Yeah, man, like that's been his life. Like he's probably been just like enmeshed in these fucking crazy far right circles where it's all like, you know, like Ruby Ridge type shit, right? Like, and he thinks that's normal behavior. Like that's what the fucking right wing media is doing to people. It's making them just so sick. Like,
well,
ugh.
it seems like it's putting this idea in all of their heads where they gotta go and stop the Marxist uprising and they gotta go and restore order and all this other kind of
Yeah,
bullshit that
it's like
gets
QAnon
people.
shit.
Yeah, I mean QAnon. Speaking of QAnon, Mr. Pedophile over there.
Yeah, how crazy is that? Like,
Yeah, it
I wonder
doesn't
if any of them are recognizing that, like, that's such a classic right-wing pedo move too. Like, start this whole subculture, like quasi-religious cult around hunting pedophiles that aren't you. You know, we got to get all the
Yeah,
other pedos, but not me. Like,
yeah, and I mean, like the other thing they're all speaking in unison about is this thing about Biden and Kamala are bailing out protesters with criminal records. You know, so you have people worked up into a frenzy like that, and then they'll see one of their senators, like Rand Paul, got confronted by a bunch of protesters, right?
mm,
And um, they'll go and they'll rush and say, "Look at, they're all out of line. They're out of control. Look what they did to our poor senator. He's a Republican, and they just started bullying him, and he was about to get,
really,
guillotined by a mob." Like, I mean, I don't know what they're thinking,
they
but
look like such pussies, though. It's like, to
yeah,
me, when I
but
see that, when I see him go on the news and take that video and say that he was threatened and he's saying they need to be arrested. You need to arrest all those people who were yelling at me, is what he said on TV,
yeah.
right? That, to me, you look like a pussy. I
Well,
don't know
yeah,
how
I
these
mean, that's
fucking
what I'm saying.
chuds
Nobody
don't
plays the
recognize that.
victim better than the right wing,
Yeah,
no matter what they're doing. And I mean, look, from a, if you're just looking at it from a practical policy standpoint, it didn't make sense what the protesters were saying to him
like I
because,
said, you always have, it's justified yelling at a Republican senator. It's always justified. They're
right. I mean,
so
that's what I'm saying.
destructive.
The only thing I would say is like from the policy perspective that they're trying to go about. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just righteous anger. They're mad, and it's it's um it's
Like,
understandable to have that reaction and not really care so much about. Okay, well, wait a minute. This is a dude that introduced the Breonna Taylor bill for
so I mean, like,
no
if
knock
Rand
warrants.
Paul wasn't such a fucking soulless little worm, he would have gone out there and done sort of like a Mitt Romney type thing, right? Where he was like, no, I stand with you. Like, look, this is the policy I have.
Right.
But like, he can't do that because he's a fucking white supremacist. He thinks that they're less than. He won't deign to speak with them, right? Like, he won't, their voices don't matter to him kind of thing, right? So like, the Breonna Taylor, like the no knock warrant thing, that's just politics to him. He doesn't fucking care, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care about any of his libertarianism, right? Like, he votes for every Trump military budget. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and see, that's one thing that you could call him out on is, hey, you're in favor of a small government. Why don't
he
you
was in
cut federal
favor of
funding to the
like
police?
Yeah, he's one of the people who was coming out, still is coming out against government spending on recovery, right? That's the thing you yell at Rand Paul about, right? Like,
Yeah.
you say, austerity is theft. You scream that in his face. Like, that's a much more effective message.
Well,
But like I said, fuck those guys, man. They're doing this on purpose. Like, they're intentionally trying to stoke the vitriol, and they're justifying all of their supporters' actions, trying to win the election. They're not like they believe in nothing. Like, they are just want to keep funneling money to their cronies and whatever their special interest groups, and stoke all the violence and hatred and conspiracies and all that madness. Just like the shit he's saying about like the soup cans and like they're convinced, or at least their messaging is convinced, that this is all being funded, like some rich fat cat is like buying people plane tickets.
Rich fat cats having a bipartisan consensus. There was a player strike in across a few of the major sports. Actually, there was a strike, and the NBA in particular, I think it was a little bit more prominent because LeBron James was at the head of it, and Obama went in there and shut that shit down quick.
President Obama is a great man. He's a great man, and I wish he was still the president of the United States.
It's so fucking enraging. Like, it's just, my hatred for Obama just in the past couple months is just, it's just spiraled, man. Like, I just want to fucking strangle
him. He did the neoliberal version of telling him to shut up and dribble. That's what he did.
I wonder what he said to them in that meeting they had, though, too. Like,
it's so
you can kind of guess what he said to Pete, and Klobuchar. Like,
and
what does he have to threaten LeBron with?
No, I think LeBron just respects Obama so much that he was just gonna listen to him. That's what it was. But I mean, look at the stuff that they did a strike for like a day and a half, right?
It would have been so effective if they'd stuck it out.
No, it would have, but even with that little bit of a strike, they got all their arenas turned into polling places, right? That's what they did. No, of course, who gives a fuck? But at least that was just something that they could say, look, they already did that.
Joe Biden. Like,
right? They're completely off message. But the other part of the strike is, what are you gonna go and demand from these players are actually gonna try and get something?
End qualified immunity.
That's exactly what they should have came out and
one
said.
Simple thing, do it and say end qualified immunity. It's easy for you to do. You can make a fucking bill in Congress and do it tomorrow. Like,
yes.
That's what's driving me so nuts about the Democrats' response.
But that's what the players should have gone in with. Their aim of the strike should have been, all right, we're not going to come back and play until we have a bill on the floor and it's voted in to end qualified immunity. And but they had enough swing, I think, sitting out to be able to do. They could have done it. That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm saying the people who would have been suffering from that, the billionaires who run the NBA and do the TV and all that shit, who make money off of it, they would have been pissed off, and they do not care about the cops. Like, they defend the cops because it's advantageous to them. But if it was the tables were turned somehow and they were trying to weaponize the other side of the argument, they would 100% do it. They have no allegiance to the cops, and they could get their supporters to hate cops too, I bet. In the Reagan era, there was totally like the far right was much more separatist, like Eamon Bundy and shit. Like they can totally get them to lap up anything.
Yeah, so, I mean, with that player strike, it was a little bit off aim. It was pretty well off aim.
I think it was partly the Obama, like,
part of it
Obungled it, but it was also like, I don't think they were that committed. I think there's probably something.
I think they got upset and they reacted, and they went in on it just wanting to go ahead and make a statement.
There's probably a handful of guys on each team who were super hardcore, like militant guys who were willing to do what it takes. And then probably most of them were more like, like Flava Flav, right? Mm-hmm. Like when, Public Enemy broke up because Chuck D wanted to do a benefit concert for Bernie, and Flava Flav wanted to get paid for it. And like Chuck D basically said he's been doing this our entire career. Like he's, doesn't care about anything but money. And that's probably an extreme version of it, but I feel like probably half the NBA guys just, they're like, I'm rich, bitch. What do I care?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give that to LeBron. LeBron.
LeBron is serious, man.
I think LeBron legitimately. I think his view is a little bit askew because of where his position or anything like that. But I think he really genuinely wants to be some sort of activist and wants to stand up for what he feels is the right position. But I think that I think he just has the wrong kind of information sometimes. But
yeah, I think like you said, I think he has too much respect for Obama. He's getting too much pressure from other guys, especially guys who aren't getting paid as much as him. A lot of guys need that paycheck, and he doesn't want to let down his fans, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure on them, but that could have been so legendary, man. Just imagine if they were fucking striking every day, like with pickets, like
during the playoffs too. That's crazy.
They would have caved very quickly. That's why Obama did that shit, because he knew. Obama only involved himself. It's important. So he involved himself to take out Bernie. He involved himself to do this. He involved himself to get rid of Keith Ellison.
Well, I was wondering. I was wondering on this too because there was of course, yesterday was a pretty notable primary race, and we saw that the establishment kind of jumped in on Joe Kennedy's behalf over Ed Markey. So we had Pelosi and Beto came in at the last minute. Pinche cabrón.
Kiss of death.
But you did see this kind of set up in the mainstream media as a little bit of a proxy war between AOC and Pelosi. And there was the way the race shaped out from the very beginning. It looked like Markey was the underdog going into it, and Kennedy, just based on his name and who was gonna go ahead and back him. At the end of the day, it's us holding our ground, but the establishment really did make a big push to go ahead and unseat him.
I've been thinking about it more. Like initially last night, I was like, basically being a buzzkill, like everybody chill out. We didn't win anything. Like we just didn't lose. And the more I thought about it, the more I think it could be helpful. Like because of the factors that you're talking about, like the AOC and Pelosi matchup. But also like the model, right? Like proving that a Democrat with his record's not sterling, it's not perfect. Like he voted for the Iraq War, like he did some bad shit, and you can commit to progressive policies and get the left on your side.
And even just like he really doubled down on being the progressive candidate.
Yeah, and like it wasn't hard either. He had to take like two, basically Medicare for all and Green New Deal. It's all he really had to embrace.
And see, there was that tweet that came out from that dude from Political's, Alex Thompson, right? And he said basically the same thing. Publicly support Medicare for all, Green New Deal. If you're an incumbent, you can do that and then align yourself with AOC, not Pelosi, and you can win. Now, if I see a wave of incumbents deciding to go ahead and do that, shit, that's a power change.
That's why I think it's helpful. Exactly. Yeah. So it's proving out that sort of strategy can work, right? But like,
it can work.
I mean, yeah, it can work if you embrace good policies. People will vote for you, right?
Definitely.
Like, and especially in that kind of situation where it's sort of like the empty, like woke neoliberal, against, sort of a whatever. Like I don't know what you would call them. Blue collar.
Well, I mean, the way they explained on Rising, because it's in Massachusetts, there was a coalescing of the Warren and Bernie factions of the party, I guess, that came together to support Markey, which again just threw me back into Super Tuesday mode and thinking if fucking Warren would have just dropped out, where would have been.
I don't know if we mentioned that before, but when Trump he says that, and he's dead on when he says, Warren cost Bernie the primary. Like, it's the same sort of dynamic, right? Like, everybody else coalesced, the center coalesced around the center candidate, and the left of center couldn't do that. Like, I don't know if Warren, if she was doing it in bed. I kind of think she was. Like,
of course she was.
You think that she knew she was just going to be a spoiler?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
Yep, I think that's exactly what she did. She did her part of the hatchet candidate and undercut and kneecapped Bernie's campaign. I think she did that shit on purpose.
She got that super PAC money in California and did all those ads.
Yeah,
like anti-Bernie ads. Like, if we could just have won Texas and Massachusetts
big
It would have
difference.
been so much different. And then second Super Tuesday, fuck.
Well,
God.
the last thing I want to go ahead and say about the marquee races, afterwards, AOC did go ahead and tweet something that I think is going to be something to carry over, because the response from AOC after Pelosi came out and endorsed was kind of like, all right, well, it's on now.
Game on, yeah.
Game on. You can go. We're going to go ahead and run primaries against incumbents. All right, cool. Let's go about it. And she said a tweet that said, you ever notice how primary challengers from progressives are derided as divisive and bad for the party, yet folks are oddly silent about how the center conservative wing of the party just spent millions trying to unseat me, Ilhan, Rashida, and Ed Markey.
Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
And that's really what there was an article that was written about, I think it was Ilhan's challenger, who said, the article said that this candidate is running to end the divisiveness within the Democratic Party.
Well, that's the same sort of messaging thing we were talking about, though. It's like they're all trying, the Democrats and the Republicans are all trying to appeal to this like 50 and up sort of like boomer Gen X and older crowd that is, they want to go to their grave believing in American exceptionalism. Like they want to go to their grave believing in the shining city on the hill bullshit. Mm-hmm. And any kind of critique of that is seen as like a faux pas. Like, so they're all just trying to not sort of point out any of the glaring problems with our country. Like none of the, the homeless, the fucking military budget, the environment, like Medicare, like all of these things that are just obvious, like the monopolies, like, telecoms, like Amazon. There's so many problems they can point to, and they're avoiding all of them in favor of the sort of empty platitudes. And I mean, maybe they can get it through one more race, but I don't know. I think it's dumb, and I guess they think that the primary proved that their strategy is right, and they should try to appeal to conservative voters. But like, there's a difference.
Not why they won anyway.
Exactly, they won because they cheated. Because Obama pressured them to drop out. Like, it just totally subverted the whole rationale for having a primary, having contestants try out and do best, and you pick the one who does best. It just completely subverted all that to get rid of people who objectively did better than Joe and have them support Joe, not to mention Bernie. Like, they didn't give it a chance. Like, it could be an effective, like, I think for real Bernie would be running away with it because Biden's messaging is so weak that they're not countering the Republicans' messaging at all. Because that's all they have, right? Like,
right.
Their policies are objectively terrible for regular people pretty much across the board. There's nothing good about the laws that they would enact. So they have to go full on culture war narrative, right? The Nancy Pelosi wants to do Sharia law. Like, that's where they have to go all the time, right? And the Democrats can't even respond at all. Like, it's bizarre watching them sort of fumble around, just no way to counter it. And it's kind of gotten to, they're trying to bring out that law and order rhetoric. And it's just so dumb when you got to think that the law and order Republicans are never, they're not gettable. No. They are the far right.
No, and it doesn't make sense. And the only way it makes sense to me, looking at it from the other perspective, is just they're stuck in an antiquated political analysis from the 90s, and they're still trying to go ahead and go back to the well and say that worked, so let's go back to it. But all right, why don't we go ahead and wrap up on our history segment then?
I wanted to shit on Democrats messaging more. It's History Hour with Tony and Matt, where we talk about history. History time.
All right, so today is September 2nd, so we're right around the date. If you're in 1939, this would have been the day after Germany just invaded Poland and unveiled their Blitzkrieg strategy, which helped them conquer most of Europe.
Hitler, man.
What really
was his deal, man? He was.
Well, I mean, for the German strategy going into the invasion of Poland was not really he covered his bases, let's say. So he had a non-aggression pact with Russia, and he had a sort of an idea going in for the negotiations with France and Britain that they weren't going to go ahead and retaliate with declaring war on Germany while he went and tried to expand. So he expanded into Austria and Czechoslovakia with pretty much zero resistance, and then went and opened up on this strategy to go ahead and invade Poland. Now, beforehand, there was sort of agreement between the Soviet Union and Germany to just split up Poland, and then the Poles had an agreement that the UK and France would come to its defense should they get invaded by Hitler.
Yeah, man, they screwed the Poles. Like, the Poles were good allies, and the fucking rest of the West screwed them.
Yeah, so it really did turn out that way. So, and in response to the invasion of Poland, which it lasted about a month, the whole campaign of the Russians and the Germans at this point, and at most you saw a couple of offensives by France to go ahead and move up against Germany, and you had some imports of supplies and aid come from the UK into Poland.
Yeah, they paradropped some stuff, and they had they had the OSS and all there. Like, I read a book about the Polish resistance. It's really interesting. But they were brutal. The Russians specifically, like the Katya Forest stuff, like they killed just an entire generation of like intellectuals and like thought leaders.
Well, not surprisingly, throughout that whole thing, the Jews ended up getting it the worst. The Jewish Poles. So there was something around like 6 million Poles that ended up dying during that whole conflict. I think that would have been like the entirety of World War II, because once the Germans took over Poland, they started wanting to go ahead and move with their final solution in Poland, and something like
I thought they were still just using them as like slave labor at first. I thought they didn't do the kill camps, the death camps, until later on in the war.
The final solution kind of was always the plan at one point or another, but the idea was to go ahead and commit genocide at some point. So the other interesting part about the offensive by Germany into Poland was they try to characterize it as a defensive action.
Yeah, motherfuckers. But like, that's the same shit the chuds would do now. It's the same shit they are doing now. Yeah, that's what fascists do. Like, when really Hitler was rising to power in the 30s, he would do like pretty much explicitly what Trump is doing now, where they would go to like communist-controlled parts of the country, like Portland, and not that it's communist, but whatever. They would go there and provoke a response, and then when the communists would beat somebody up or whatever, they would go out in the paper like, oh, my poor German friend was beaten by those crazy communists. Like, who is funding this aggression? Is it Stalin? Like, the same sort of shit now, like.
Yep. That's the fascist playbook doesn't really change, but
it's just so fucking aggravating that they're doing it, and like Nancy Pelosi spends an entire day messaging about her trip to the hairdressers instead of saying, look, this is literally what Hitler did in the 30s. He's doing it specifically exactly this. This is serious. Like, don't,
Well, the thing with Hitler, though, after the offensive into Poland and they split up the country with Russia, was East and West Poland. And he was still, his ambitions were not to go to war immediately with Britain and France. He was counting on them to not do anything, because they hadn't done anything up to that point, to go ahead and check his military buildup or his expansion even into Austria or Czechoslovakia. So he was like, well, they'll probably just let me have this one.
Do you think he wanted Russia first? Do you think I feel like he hated communists, right?
He did hate communists. It was one of the key state enemies, but I don't think he was ready to move against the Soviet Union either. He was just trying to see, what he could get away with pushing before they would end up being pushed back.
He thought he could take Poland
without them responding.
The whole fucking country. I mean, that's pretty much the history of Poland, though. It was basically like conquered from the east and west, back and forth for the last 1,000 years. So the Germans probably thought, like they were entitled to it or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And probably a lot of Europeans probably just thought the same thing. Like, oh, let them have that. Like, they're they're going to keep fighting over it, whatever. I guess it's like, I guess he underestimated the West's desire to go to war, right? Like the capitalists' desire to go to war. Right?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the motivations of that point though.
No,
But
yeah, I don't think that. I think they, you know,
I
they
mean,
had to defend themselves at that point, right?
yeah, I mean, at that point, you're kind of wondering where he's going to stop. I think,
Yeah.
at that point, you're kind of looking at it as, we just fought this country in World War One. They just did a military buildup, and now they're taking territory. And
Yeah,
they took
should have
Poland
started cracking down as soon as they started.
as soon
right?
as they
As
had
soon
a
as
military
Hitler
buildup, they
seized
would've-
power, like that's
But-
what they do there. They have that patina of like legitimacy, and then they staunchly defend it. So if you were to say like, "Oh, Hitler, you didn't, you usurped that chancellorship or whatever," it would have been like, "What are you talking about? I was appointed because I have this support, blah blah blah." I
But-
have these violent street gangs that support me. Like,
Yeah, but instead, this all happened. They didn't check anything, and this, for a lot of people, marks the beginning of World War II. Was the invasion of Poland?
yeah, no, that's a good start date.
But
yeah.
all right, so that's gonna go ahead and wrap up our webisode. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to catch our latest episode of the podcast. It's out right now. You can catch that on Matt's page or on the show page. I think you have it pinned up, right?
Yeah, it's at the top of mine. Marxist Gunstetter.
That's right. Go ahead and follow Matt right there at DJ Tom Hanks. You can catch that episode link.
And my man over here, _ Tony Westside.
Yes, that's me. And all right, we're out.
All right, later.